want to talk about Three Tenets practice, both on its own and in the context of the war that has begun in Israel and Gaza. And I think sometimes we I don't know if this is true or not, we associate Three Tenets practice more specifically with Zen peacemakers. But in fact, as I think about it, and this is my opinion, this whole thing will be my opinion, so hold on to it like you would a handful of sugar and let it slip through your fingers. My opinion is, my feeling is, my experience is that Three Tenets practice is essential Zen practice. It's nothing separate from, or nothing special, or different from our Zen practice. But it's easy to get confused around it. I can get myself wrapped around the axle thinking about it too much, which is probably the key to not getting wrapped around the axle, is don't think about it. It's probably the key to a lot of things. You may or may not have seen in the newsletter, the header I wrote, I tried to just word it differently so it would land and maybe in a more approachable way. I think it's fairly approachable as it is. Not knowing, bearing witness, taking loving action from not knowing and bearing witness. But I phrased it differently and I said, be still. Look and don't turn away. And wait for your heart to tell you what to do. That lands a different way. Nowhere in the Three Tenets do we talk about what it is that we should go do. What's good, what's better, what's not so good. All of those things. So I made some notes. Let me get into this and see if this resonates with anybody here. We've been friends almost 60 years, Roger and I. We lived together a while in school. I got with his girlfriend once way back when, but he said he forgave me for that. We're all still friends 60 years later. There was a time in Portland when he was supposed to pick me up at Portland State. And he forgot. When I had to walk 9 miles. I ran his truck into a ditch in Bellingham in 1972. And he said I was an idiot. I was. But I've never forgotten that. For no particular reason, I think it's just our lives went in different ways. For about 10 years, we didn't talk much. There was nothing up, really. It was just a gap. But we reconnected 15 years ago, and we talk, all the time now. The other day, he said something like, "You always do shit like this." Really pissed me off. And he was right. Boy, if I ever told him all the stuff that he does all the time. I love my friend, but our relationship is fraught and very complicated. As well as I know it, this relationship, I can't say that I really know anything about why it is what it is. Too much has happened over too long a period of time. So I choose to be still about it, to let my opinions and my grievances go, to not know, to feel my heart, and to appreciate the time we have left together. We're both right. And we're both wrong. And we're still brothers. Jewish and Muslim and Christian people, Arabs, Israelis, all kinds of tribes and subgroups of people have lived in what was Palestine for thousands of years. Imagine the stories. Imagine the grievances. I don't think we have to imagine them, but they're way more complicated and nuanced and deep than I could ever appreciate. Imagine the accumulated anger, and sorrow, and pain and trauma, and all the tangles. All the tangles. How come you're mad at him? Oh, he did this. Why did he do that? Well, probably because I did that before that. And then he did something, And after a while, you forget. You forget what caused what. And I guess my thought about it is that it doesn't matter. There's things to work out, to be sure, but there's no possible way to sort all that out, especially over thousands of years. We're all aware of this terrible conflict in the Holy Land right now, and the lives being lost. It's gone on all my life and long before. And flared up again a couple weeks ago. Hamas carried out a deadly terror attack in southern Israel, killing hundreds, kidnapping others in this most ghastly way. And Israel's in the midst of what I would think is a somewhat disproportionate but understandable retaliation. Palestinians are denied basic civil rights, and they live like prisoners in Gaza. And at the same time, Hamas and Hezbollah vow to wipe out all Jews and the state of Israel. What a thing. And I don't want to suggest, and I'm not here to talk about politics, that's not my point. I don't want to suggest any sort of equivalency between the various positions in this conflict, perpetrators and victims. Or I definitely don't want to suggest any equivalency or conflation between my relationship with my friend and what's going on in the Middle East. That would be totally inappropriate and insulting, I think. With 2.3 million Gazans in this tiny little area, size of New Jersey, and 9.5 million Israelis, 20% of whom are Arabs, these stories and heartbreak and pain are inconceivable. We each witness this, and we all react in our own ways. Some of us can't take our eyes off the news. I don't probably fall into that camp. I absolutely do. Others can't bear to look at the news because it's so triggering. And especially if we're doing practice, it's a huge challenge to look at what's going on and not take a position. If there's one other description of Three Tenets practice, it's that. No position, no fixed place, no fixed idea. And then others among us really lean into and dive into and embrace our positions righteously. And I get that, I really do. I had breakfast with Jewish friends yesterday. I understand. I don't understand how they feel. I can't say that. But I can see it. I appreciate it. Wars and I'm no expert on war by any means. I opposed one as a youngster for a long time. But they have this effect. Hoden and I had lunch today, and we were talking about this. We go to our corners, and it's tender, and it's human, and it's understandable that we go to our corner. We go to our corner and we put up our dukes. This is wrong. Those guys are wrong. But I feel that even doing that, no fixed position, no fixed idea. So it has to include us when we do that. I feel like doing that and resorting to my small self, angry, vindictive, blaming, judging. That's my true nature. That's my true nature. An expression of our caring and our compassion when we do that. It may be somewhat ineffective or misguided in the worst cases, but we're expressing our true nature when we do that. And all that makes Three Tenets practice that much more challenging. It's daunting. Reaching back again to, and I wanted to avoid doing this too much, but reaching back again to Zen peacemakers, we boiled our mission statement down to a single line, and I won't say it to you verbatim, but this practice, Three Tenets practice, is about waking up to the reality of oneness and interdependence. Not a belief, not a sentiment, not a philosophy. Waking up to that reality. And then doing everything we can to relieve suffering in a suffering world. That's it. Seems simpler. Grant and I led a new council format that we're trying a week or two ago, really looking into how political polarization in the US, in Australia, in Europe, in Brazil, all over the place where our members are, is having an adverse effect on personal relationships. And how does that feel? In council, we're not there to figure anything out, but rather just to explore, how does that feel? How does it feel to have people that I've known for, 50, 60 years that I really can't talk to anymore? What's that feel like? It was an interesting, it was off to a good start. It's a good format, and it's one that we'll continue to do. Anyway, I bring that up only because in that, Grant read a letter that, I'll read it to you, that Bernie Glassman sent to the community November 11th of 2016, just a few days after the election. And the Zen Peacemakers community was upset, let's just say that, really upset, and really reacting. And Bernie wrote, the recent election in the United States has had a deep impact, not just on Americans, but on many around the world. It has stoked shock, fear, upset, and anger in many, and relief, hope, and gladness in others. The big differences in how we feel reflect the diversity of people, their karmas, their values and vision. That difference is no problem. Honoring those differences while seeking common ground and taking action is the challenge facing us now. this is this is why I wanted to read this. Bernie said, "This is the best time to invoke the three tenets and bring forth the mind of not knowing, bearing witness, and a response grounded in these tenets. Rather than knowing what to fear and expect, which sows fires of confusion, outrage, and victimhood, let's cultivate not knowing, letting go of preconceptions and certainties. Please use whatever practice grounds you in this space, be it meditation, mindfulness, ceremony, or prayer. Bear witness to what arises, both outside and inside, and then honor the response that naturally comes forth from this present moment." And he finished by saying, "This is the best of times to practice these three tenets, grounding our perceptions and actions in our experience of the wholeness of life rather than in fear and bias. May we serve this whole with strength, patience, humor, and determination." Bernie didn't say to be perfect. And he didn't say, well, when those things come up, push them down. Deny them. And he didn't say Donald Trump's a good guy or a bad guy. Doesn't matter. In the relative world, it matters. Matters to me because there's a real threat in a year. But that's not Three Tenets practice. Experience the oneness and the interdependence of life, and then stand up and go do something to relieve suffering in a suffering world. He urged us to notice and ground ourselves in what is, in everything that is, which has to include us. When I made that note, I thought, I get to relax and be honest now. I'm supposed to be good at this Three Tenets thing. But I judge and deplore Hamas and the terror that they imposed. This doesn't help the civil rights of the Palestinians. That's my judgment. I also judge and deplore the IDF overreach, Israeli Defense Forces, and their brutality. They've killed 3 times more people than were killed in southern Israel. Were they all combatants? 2% of Gazans are Hamas fighters. Out of 2.3 million people, it's about 30,000. Chances are all those 400 or 4,500 people killed in Gaza were not all combatants. I deplore that. The world, the war, my greed, my anger, my ignorance, my weaknesses, my failings. The Three Tenets practice does not mean that we go into the sausage making machine and come out the other end perfect and equanimous and peaceful and wise. It just doesn't mean that at all. It's not a sausage making machine. I'm not called on to bear witness to this, but not that. How can I and my human tendencies, no matter what I might judge about them, that othering of those people who do those kinds of things, how can I exclude those things? I can't. I have to hold them all. So when I stumble, when I get angry, when I feel like striking back, or when I decide I'm right and he's wrong, and Roger's wrong a little bit more than me, I was meant to lighten it up a little bit. This too is the action of my true nature. My practice is to embrace myself, to be still, to look and not turn away, and to very carefully listen to what my heart tells me to do. Succumbing to my fear doesn't disqualify me from starting over again. Pick your cliche about, a saint is a sinner who stood up and tried again one more time and they fell down. There's a lot of those. I have that opportunity to be able to start over again all the time. And I use that opportunity. I have to. Just like taking a breath. Mind wanders a little bit. Back to this. Being someone with a tendency toward very strong opinions and fixed positions. And I worked hard at this. I know others here did too. I worked hard at having my arguments all squared away, ready to go. I was like a wind-up toy. Just hit the button and I'll go and I'll tell you all about it. Righteous indignation. I probably ruined more than a few dinners. It was a major revelation to me when I realized I didn't need any of those. Studying the history of the Middle East, learning about Native Americans or, black people enslaved in the United States, those are great pursuits. Those are great things to do. And it can be helpful to know our histories. But when it comes time to experience the oneness and the interdependence of, the reality of that, and to get up and go do something to help relieve suffering in the suffering world, those fixed positions, those opinions are of no value to me whatsoever. I would suggest that they're even a hindrance. And they're all still there. But practicing letting them go a little bit, even just a little bit, is profound. Again, my experience, it's profound. I still can feel and see the suffering, which is really what draws me to this anyway. And with a little lighter hold on those fixed opinions and ideas, I find that I actually feel the suffering of others much more deeply, much more intimately. And that me having a whole script, here's why this happened, and then before that, these guys did that, and they're to blame, and this is all that. What I found was that was kind of a protective device, so that I didn't really have to feel it. When I'm quiet, I can really feel it. If I have to go vote, or if I'm part of city council, or if I'm a U.S. congressperson, yeah, I need to know that. But then I get to choose to go draw on that information, not that it drives me. Just letting it go a little bit. I feel less pushed and pulled about, less triggered, less like a pinball. It's a leap of faith to try this, and it is for me. I'm never finished dealing with this opinionated Geoff. He's there. He'll be with me. But I like the idea of being able to choose. So I invite everybody to take that step. I want to finish by, this has been on Facebook, so maybe others have seen this, or maybe it's just in my feed. We have a friend, Sami Awad, who's a Palestinian man who runs the Holy Land Trust. He's an Israeli citizen, but he's Palestinian. He lives in Bethlehem. And we were talking to him the other day, and he has an extended family of 8 people who lived in Gaza City. And 2 weeks ago, they had to leave their home and go to another temporary home. And very soon after, their original home was destroyed. They had to move again, and the temporary place they were in was destroyed. So they moved again, and yes, the third place was destroyed. So this family of 8 people, 2 of whom are in their 80s, are living in 2 cars down at the Rafah gate, waiting to get into Egypt, which will probably not happen. That's Sammy's family. And here's what he wrote. If I can read this. I chose to resist your persecution and not demean you, to overcome your oppression and not suppress you, to respond to your violence with nonviolence. I chose to speak loud and clear for freedom and life and not insult you. I chose love to be the motivation. This love is not some romanticized love that makes me submit to you and give you my all. This love is not the love that justifies and excuses your actions. This love is my strength because it conquers my fear. Only in this love we can come together to break systems of oppression and create the new. Sami Awad. So, thank you all for listening.